Mary had a little lamb.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Well, it's Friday, you bastards.
All this week, Super Spreader USA. It's the one, the only, the original monster COVID facts. Get there early to get exposed. First come, first served. Experience in person the virus that's killed nearly 620,000 Americans. First 750 in get a free Make the ICUs Full Again hat. 10 lucky winners will get to meet and kiss the super spreader himself.
I'll kiss the guys and the beautiful women
On the lips. Masks are for losers. You'll be up close and personal with thousands of other MAGA maniacs sharing the excitement of a real Trump rally and COVID-19. Featuring hit songs like What Do You Have to Lose? It's no big deal. You've lived long enough. And crowd favorite, I give it to most of my staff and all of my family. This weekend, one day only. Don't miss it. Paid for by COVID-19 and the Funeral Homes of America. Actually, paid for by the Lincoln Project, which is solely responsible for the content of this ad.
You'll be required to sign a legal release. So if you or one of your loved ones dies from COVID, Donald J. Trump is, as usual, in no way responsible for your death or for the tens of thousands of deaths his mismanagement has caused.
Oh! That is real. That is, well, it's the Lincoln Project's riff on something real. There is a very big super spreader rally in Alabama. This Saturday, tomorrow night. Yeah, in northern Alabama. So if you're not doing anything else and you're ready to die, please do attend in Coleman, Alabama. It'll be a killer rally. Oh, my God. So do you know what's going on in Alabama? Do you know? I mean, I think you know what's going on in Florida. I think you understand what's going on in Texas. I think we get that people there are politically predisposed to wanting to die. And they won't mask, and their governors. I don't even understand these governors anymore. I mean, why doesn't Ron death sentence or Greg Abbott, who just tested positive for breakthrough COVID and is now availing himself to the Regeneron antibody cure? I mean, why don't they just go ahead and put anthrax in our drinking water and call it a day? Why don't they just do that? I don't understand. But I will tell you this, Florida, Alabama, people are going to want, it's going to look like Afghanistan. People are going to, run to the airports to get the hell out, And yes, in Florida, to get the hell out, you have to fly. You can't drive because then you'll just end up in Alabama or Georgia. You can't drive out of Florida and not be in one of the COVID-afflicted states or at a Trump rally. So look for mass exodus, here, everybody. Look for that. I don't think people will hold on to the outside of an airplane or anything like that because the people who support Donald Trump, they're already inside the airplane beating up stewardesses or parked out front of the Library of Congress declaring themselves suicide bombers. Can you see the similarities? Can you? So I don't understand, what's going on and why people are so ready to die. I don't think I'll ever understand it, no matter how much reading I do about mass psychosis or about how 30% of America are so partisan that they have to believe that people who vaccinate themselves against a pathogen, which we've done all of our lives, are somehow losers. I don't understand it. I don't want to try to understand it anymore. I just feel so badly for healthcare workers, for hospital staff, for people who know people who are like this, who are going to have to watch their friends die these horrible, horrific, ugly deaths and, infect children. Listen, I'm going to play you some of these lunatic, fringy people, okay? Here's Matt Getz at a rally.
Speaking of government bureaucrats, I have heard enough of that sniveling little twit, Dr. Anthony Fauci. Oh, that was a gay sound. I have to say,
No, Matt Getz. Somebody needs to actually lock him up. You know, Joel Greenberg, his best friend, is cooperating. I think he turned over hundreds of child porn, Venmo transactions. I don't know. We'll see. But this guy is out in Iowa, trashing Dr. Fauci. Now, I'm not clear where Matt Getz got his medical degree in virology. Oh, that's right. He doesn't have one. But wow, this is just amazing. Now, Dan Patrick, you remember Dan Patrick, the lieutenant governor of Tejas, right? You remember him, don't you? He's the one who, at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, when Donald Trump was saying it'll just go away, nobody has died, only 15 people. I don't want to bring the cruise ship into port because, we have nice low numbers, and if we bring them into port, the numbers will go up. I don't believe in testing because testing makes you understand the numbers. Remember all that? And so Dan Patrick went on the TV and said, everybody, there are more important things than living. No, he did. And he insisted that if he had to die to preserve the stock market's numbers, he would do so.
See a lot of people out of work and you're going to see the economy crush. Do you think you've been vindicated?
I'm sorry that I'm vindicated. I wish it hadn't happened, Tucker, but I'm a small business guy, and I've been around the block long enough to see what was going to happen. When you start shutting down society and people start losing their paychecks and businesses can't open and governments aren't getting revenues and go on and on and on and on. So I'm sorry to say that I was right on this, and I'm thankful that we are now, Tucker, finally beginning to open up Texas and other states because it's been long overdue. They told us, Tucker, to follow the science. Well, what science? I mean, at the end of January, Dr. Fauci, who I have great respect for, said this wasn't a big issue. 3 weeks later, we were going to lose 2 million people. Another few weeks later, it was 1 to 200,000. Now it's under 60,000. And we've had the wrong numbers, the wrong science. And I don't blame them. But let's face reality of where we are. In Texas, we have 29 million people. We've lost 495, and every life is valuable. But 500 people out of 29 million, and we're locked down, and we're crushing the average worker. We're crushing small business. We're crushing the markets. We're crushing this country. And what I said when I was with you that night, there are more important things than living, and that's saving this country for my children and my grandchildren.
How about a stimulus bill? How about that? No, he was pretty convinced he had to die for, his grandchildren and the stock market. He was very convinced that, the government stimulus package would, he didn't think of it. And so he was ready to die. All right. So now yesterday he decided COVID is spreading because, oh my God. When you listen to this, it's going to be hair-raising. I'm going to tell you what he's going to say, and then he's going to say it. And even after I tell you and you hear him say it, it's still going to sound unfreaking believable.
Coming after your state because the increased COVID numbers, hospitalizations, deaths are up in Texas, and there's a direct assault on your governor's policies and your state's policies. Yeah. Very brief response.
Yeah. Well, Laura, the COVID is spreading, particularly most of the numbers are with the unvaccinated, and the Democrats like to blame Republicans on that. Well, the biggest group in most states are African Americans who have not been vaccinated. The last time I checked, over 90% of them vote for Democrats in their major cities and major counties. So it's up to the Democrats to get, just as it's up to Republicans, to try to get as many people vaccinated. But we respect the fact that if people don't want the vaccination, we're not going to force it on them. That's their individual right.
Okay, so at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, he said only 60,000 have died. Well, we're well over 620,000 dead at this point. So he was wrong at the beginning. So garbage in, garbage out. But now the garbage that's coming out of his mouth is, this is a black thing. The reason why Texas has lost so many people, the reason why Texas is so eaten up with COVID has nothing to do with Republicans refusing to get vaccinated. It has nothing to do with the low vaccination rates of, Texas Republicans or their decision not to mask their children in school or any of those things. No, it's because of black people. Drink that in, everybody.
all things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
Alabama reported a net negative number of available staffed ICU beds yesterday. Negative, which means they have no room and there are patients waiting to get into the beds that are already filled. There are more patients than beds right now. And here's the thing that I find most unsettling about this, and this involves some very, very, very easy math. The situation that Alabama's in right now is happening with the state having about 2,700 patients in the hospital. That is the level of hospitalization in Alabama that has led to this big crisis, 2,700. Today, the University of Alabama at Birmingham predicted that the state's current surge in COVID is going to peak this time next month. And at that point, there will be more than 5,000 people in the hospital in Alabama. That's almost double where they are now. Right now, the state is in gridlock, in crisis. No room for, not an ICU bed in the state. That's with 2,700 people in the hospital. Alabama expects it will be at 5,000 people in the hospital this time next month.
You know, let's have a rally. Let's have a super spreader rally in Alabama. That's what Donald Trump is doing. He's having a super spreader event tomorrow in Alabama. Alabama, that has absolutely no available ICU beds, with 2,743 patients currently admitted. And the Alabama Health and Human Services is predicting a need for 5,000 inpatient COVID cases. You know, what could go wrong there? I tell you, I just read these articles and I'm like, the health officials, they're giving, interviews to whoever will listen to them. And they said, that they are this is the quote, "We are absolutely shivering in our boots." That's the administrator of the Alabama Department of Public Health Northern District. That is the quote that she gave to the Decatur Daily Alabama newspaper. "We have great concern," she said. 41% of our cases, our recent COVID cases, are between the ages of 21 and 49 because they all attended a concert last weekend called Rock the South. She said that concert took place last weekend, and sadly enough, we're pulling our teams together right now to do additional testing. We all know what's going to happen. It's not just going to be Coleman County with this, she's talking about Trump's rally. She said they're going to give it to each other, and then they're going to take it back to their other counties, and we're not going to be able to take care of them. I honestly, I don't understand the suicide, the suicide by COVID thing. I don't understand it. It's not a pleasant way to go. You feel like you're drowning from all accounts that I have been able to, listen to. It's unbelievable. Here is a pediatrician. Okay, this is a pediatrician, a child's doctor. His name is Dr. David Kimberlin, and guess he practices in Alabama, and he's like, Rachel always does the same thing. She sets it up, and then she asks her guest, did I get any of it wrong? And his answer was, not only didn't you get it, you got it completely right, but it's worse than you said.
From the inside, it looks even worse. I use this word carefully. I think we may be looking at a collapse of our healthcare system throughout the state of Alabama. As you pointed out, we had a net negative ICU beds yesterday. That's for adult and pediatric ICU beds. Today, Alabama surpassed Florida in terms of rates of pediatric hospitalizations with COVID. And this is not just, the surge with the Delta variant of COVID. That's what's putting the obvious strain on the system. But in addition to that, everyone else, we still have people having heart attacks. We still have people having strokes. We still have people with major trauma from automobile accidents, and they have to have a place to go. And in Mobile today, what I was told by a colleague down there, they had no ambulances. There were no ambulances to go out and pick up people. We are really at a teetering kind of break point here, and I'm very scared that we might not be able to get through this without catastrophic kind of consequences.
Oh, that gives me chills because I lived in Mobile, Alabama. I lived there for about 2 years, 3 years. It's a great city. Say what you want about Alabama, but Mobile is a really good place to live. I got addicted to Popeyes there. It's the best. My entire car was filled with Popeyes wrappers. The entire car. But Mobile has no ambulance service. Oh my God. So let's have a rally. Mobile is very south, okay? Mobile is very, very south. It's, on the Gulf of Mexico. This rally is going to be in North Alabama, Cullman, Alabama. It's just going to spread throughout the state. There's no ICU beds anywhere in the state. So what is this about? What is this about? Sean in Nevada.
Hey, Randy, love you.
Love you more.
Oh, great. Listen, I've given a great deal of thought about this, and since I moved up here to Nevada, I've been gardening a lot, and I figure if these people have been exposed to this virus as much as they have and as much information as there is about getting vaccinated, I still don't, then let's go ahead go into dark winter and allow the garden to weed itself. And I know it sounds harsh, but there's nothing more we can do. They've decided they don't want to get vaxxed.
Are you really a gardener?
Yeah.
Are you really a gardener? Because
I used to be an actor. I used to call you from L.A. and say it's Sean on his way to an audition. But I moved up here when my dad died. Yeah, I'm gardening now, not acting. It's weird.
So I'm a gardener. I just started growing marijuana, I have to tell you.
I have to tell you I am too. And they're at 5,000 feet in the mountains. It's doing quite well, the Afghani strains.
So the Afghani thing, yeah, the Hindu Kush. But I mean, honestly, I don't know. I don't even consume it. I just enjoy the gardening. But
I love it more than
but
I
I have to tell you,
too.
I have never had a garden weed itself ever. So I don't know how that crosses your mind as being something that could or would happen, because it doesn't. But the problem with them is this. The problem is very basic, and that is that we need to have 85% of the American people vaccinated in order to get herd immunity going, right? To make COVID a nuisance.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah,
okay.
That's the sad part.
So what we have here are, the lowest vaccination states where 68%, Alabama, 68% of Alabama is not vaccinated, okay? So what they are actually providing the virus with is a friendly host for the virus, so that the virus can then learn and mutate and pierce our vaccines. And that is why they are so dangerous. And that is why you can't let the garden weed itself. Now, if anybody has any growing tips for the marijuana, in Zone 10, which is a very strange place to garden, that's where I am, Zone 10. It's not subtropical, but it's tropical. I would appreciate it. I am at the point of seedlings. I've germinated, and now I have seedlings. They're not sexed. They're not sexed. They could be boys, and I might have to kill them.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
We're still in the same circumstances that we were when there wasn't a vaccine, where you're watching people just pass away, and just, it's so devastating to watch unfold. We had someone in her 30s, a young mommy. She left her husband and 3 little kids, ages 4, 2, 8. They're saying, "Mommy, come home. Mommy, I miss you." She's not saying anything because she's intubated.
Oh, God.
It's rough. It's rough to watch every day. It's very rough.
That's what's on our TVs down here. That's what's on our TVs down here. Having to interview nurses so that they can tell you what a miserable, disgusting, death COVID guarantees for you, and nurses who tend to young mothers now, intubated young mothers who are leaving behind 8-year-olds and 2-year-olds and 10-month-olds. And I mean, it's unbelievable. Here's a guy. This guy, this is amazing. This is a guy who moved to Florida from Oklahoma. Okay. His dad died of COVID. And he didn't give a damn, and he just thought, you know, it's bull crap, it's a hoax, you know, it'll just go away, whatever. Didn't get himself vaccinated, and now his ex-wife, I can't think of like what hell on earth might be like for some of you guys if your ex-wife was the person who was called and asked whether or not to pull the plug on you. But that's what happened to this guy. His ex-wife was called, and she pulled the plug. She did.
A shot would have saved him.
Melinda Young, mourning the death of her ex-husband, Michael Stevenson. The two married for 2 decades before divorcing in 2017.
I think that, you know, a lot of people think the shot is how they were going to track people. The government tracks people, or they're trying to take too much control.
Even after his own father died of COVID in April, Michael still didn't get vaccinated. 2 months later, he was admitted to the hospital.
Within 48 hours of being admitted, he wished he would have got the shot because he was already that miserable as far as how he was feeling. His body was hurting.
Oh, that's
he
nice.
couldn't breathe, and he wished he would have gotten it.
His family in anguish as he fought for his life on a ventilator.
It was such ups and downs and so many hopeful moments that I can't even explain, that we just thought he was going to make it. We thought he was going to make it.
A week and a half later, doctors asked to pull Michael off of the machines, Melinda having to make the tough decision.
It was the worst thing I've ever done in my life.
And now she's pleading with those of you watching at home to get the vaccine.
I mean, that would make a great PSA. Get the vaccine, or your ex-wife is going to get to decide whether you live or die. I mean, you know, I get that there seems to be a friendship that remained after their marriage of 20 years. I have that experience too. Me and Jimmy are divorced longer than we were married, and he's still one of my best friends in the world, so I get it. But honestly, what a great PSA that would be. Guys, get vaccinated, or your ex-wife's going to pull the plug on you. Do you know what I'm saying? It's good. It works. Whatever gets these freaks vaccinated. So this guy was a Q freak, and he thought that the vaccine was going to track him. As if Sirius Satellite doesn't know exactly where your car is at all times, and that you're a subscriber and you get the signal. As if your freaking telephone doesn't track you with GPS, as if your car doesn't have a navigational system that knows as if your Google doesn't know where you are. You know, go ahead and Google find crispy chicken sandwich near me. It knows where you are. What is wrong with people? What is wrong with you? And why do you believe all of this crap when it's clearly already happening to you? You know, I remember this crap going on. This is how old I am. When the driver's licenses that we all have now added the swipeable strip, the metallic strip on the back of the driver's license, which is, you know, how they swipe your driver's license now to vote. Okay, they just, you know, you hand it and they put it through the reader. They're going to track you. They're going to track you.
It's the hubris that kills me. Like, what are you all doing that's so track-worthy? I'm just curious. Why would the government waste the technology on you?
No. Listen, I'm going to explain this to you very simply. It is valuable information. No, I know it's not a narcissistic thing, which is what they think, that they're so important that... No, but here's the thing. You know, mailing lists, things you subscribe to, you know, blah, blah, blah. I have a mailing list of everyone who ever subscribed to this show. Now, I promised at the beginning of this effort that I would never sell it, and I never have. I don't keep records of anything, and I don't see your credit card numbers, okay? All these pay platforms, they don't show the vendor your credit card information. So it isn't about your credit card. It isn't about that. It's about people that have these compilations of subscribers or compilations of data points on people that are accessing their site or whatever, they can literally sell that to other companies that do business with the consumer, direct consumer businesses. So that's why, when you're on the internet, God help me, I'm always looking for the bra, the one. And if I go and I Google, the bra, all of a sudden, I'm getting emails from Maidenform. I'm getting emails from Soma. I'm getting emails from Tommy John. I'm getting email, you name it, because they sell all your information. So it is valuable, and you shouldn't, degrade the idea that people want their privacy. I get it. But you've given up your privacy every time you agree to the terms of service of Twitter. You give up your privacy every time you agree to the terms of service of your Apple phone or your Samsung, Android. You give up your privacy when you accept cookies. You give up your private, there are people that take it very, very seriously, very seriously. They use, the unlisted browsers, and they go incognito, and they don't accept any cookies. And these are the people, though, that I find that have the worst informational sources, okay? These are the people. Oh, here's a little one for you. So last night, there was this big rumor that was just perpetuated by right-wing media that Joe Biden was charging Americans $2,000 to be evacuated from Afghanistan. Seriously. And it just got aggregated over all these right-wing lunatic websites. I mean, crazy ones, Federalist and a whole host of them. And they were all repeating it. And these women, in my neighborhood on next door, which is a crazy place, they were all saying, see, we told you, blah, blah, blah. It isn't true, but they aggregated to like-minded people.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Poll of the day. 69% of Americans favor school mask mandates, and 77% oppose withholding funding from schools and local governments over mask mandates, according to a new Axios Ipsos poll. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey announced Tuesday that schools that require masks won't be eligible for a $163 million school grant program, providing $1,800 per student. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis last week floated a similar idea, before backing off of it, maybe because it appears to be a losing argument.
Why don't they just feed the children lead paint chips and call it a day, and then put some anthrax in our water supply and kill us all? I mean, what is this slow motion, I'm going to kill you all thing that Abbott and DeSantis and Ducey over there in Arizona, that they got going on there? What is that about? They want to be on free media. They want to get on Fox TV so bad that they would, literally violate their constitutional obligation to see to the general welfare of their people, that they would do constitutional malpractice to children. I mean, it's just so unbelievable. And here we are, just whenever it seems like it's all is lost, woe is me, just look at the polls, okay? And you know what they show? They show clearly that America is a majority sane country, that we are self-governed by people who truly understand what's going on and what to do about it. But we are plagued by 30% of our population who believe in conspiracy theories and are suffering from some mass psychosis as a remnant of a demagogue's rule over 4 years of this country, and they are ready to die. Sad part is they want to take us with them, and we can't let that happen. So we have to start getting rid of the 30% that have power, the governors, the Ron death sentences. And, he's up for re-election in 2022, nary a year from now. I can't wait. Greg Abbott, too. Same thing. douchey. I mean, we have to get rid of these freaking people. Oh, and by the way, while I'm talking about voting, California, don't forget, check no and mail your ballot back. Thank you. Thank you. Lloyd in Michigan.
Hi, Randy. The terrorist who sat in front of the Library of Congress, people need to understand that's a real threat against democracy, because that's a unique archival resource in this country. There are documents there that go back to all of our conflicts, including World War II, including collaborational newspapers published by fascists on the Eastern Front during World War II. There's stuff there that if that archive was destroyed, we would lose a lot of truth that hasn't even been examined yet.
So for those who don't know what the hell you're talking about Lloyd Ray Rosenberry or Rosenberg or Rosary yesterday, the lunatic Taliban suicide bomber who is as white as you can produce in this here country, who sat outside the Library of Congress yesterday threatening to blow everybody up.
Yeah, and he said his bomb was capable of taking out 2.5 blocks. Well, that's the whole Library of Congress.
No, I know, but he was lying. The guy was delusional. And, you know, they're just going to wipe this all away because, when you see this guy, Lloyd Ray, I think he was from North Carolina yesterday, filming himself. We played you a clip of him yesterday, streaming his grievances all over the Facebook, right? And how he had a toolbox full of ammonium nitrate, he said, and he wanted Joe Biden to take a shot at him so that Joe Biden would be responsible for blowing up his truck and 2.5 blocks of Washington, D.C. Turns out that he didn't have the capability to do any of that, but this is why the Taliban and the conservative 30% in this country have so much in common. They are suicide bombers. They're willing to die. And yes, they want to take you with them. You have Republicans that won't even vote for the Violence Against Women Act. Like smacking women around is their God-given right. And they won't enshrine in law punishment for doing that. Okay? I told you yesterday, Asa Hutchinson in Arkansas, this is so Taliban-like. If you are a young woman and you are the victim of rape or incest in Arkansas, you must carry the fetus to term. That is so Taliban. That is so, a radical. That is so religiously perverted that there's so many connective tissues between the Taliban, Sharia law, and these lunatics that actually have power here in this country under the auspices of right-wing conservatism. So don't let any of this get lost on you, okay? Don't get mired in the weeds. Just understand that what happens over there can easily happen over here if you allow misogynistic, radical, extreme religiosity to become the law of this land. We will look no different than over there. That's a fact. We are a nation of men. We are a nation of laws, not a nation. We're not a Christian nation. We're not an Islamic nation. We're not a Jewish nation. We're a nation of laws. That is what America is. And for those who have a preferred religion, I must tell you that people who don't prefer your religion are in this country out to get you. They are. They plot and they plan and they scheme. If you're agnostic or atheist, you're trash to them. You mean nothing to them. They're irreligious in their religious beliefs, but you couldn't possibly convince them because they like watching these evangelicals on the TV claim that they can lay hands upon ye and cure you of whatever is ailing you, except for COVID. I don't see them running to hospitals healing the COVID. Ben in New Mexico.
Yeah, hi, Randy. I've listened to you for years, even before you're on Free Speech TV and stuff like that. The reason I'm calling is I have a friend of mine who's the director, not a director, but one of the head guys of the main hospital here, Gila Hospital. And he's written a song, and it's on YouTube. It's a free song. It's for the nurses and the healthcare workers around the country, around the world, about COVID-19.
Is it good?
It's called, well, you listen to it. I think it's great. It makes people cry. But it's called Earthbound Angels. And it's on YouTube. You just got to put that in the search bar, and it'll come up. And it's him and his daughters are nurses. The husband is a nurse, that kind of stuff. And so, I just like it to get out there. It's free. I need it to get to anybody that's involved in COVID-19, healthcare, that kind of stuff. So that's all I called for.
Okay. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Yeah, so I can't play music no matter what. I just don't do it. YouTube flags me every time I play, even this production music. A lot of people like these two songs, that you hear on our show all the time, the Don't Give Up one and the other one, Tell Me Is It Right Now, that song. They're production music pieces, and I get flagged from other production companies. So, I mean, it's a nightmare, so I can't play any music, even your friends. But I will give it a listen. Julia, Michigan. What?
Well, I was just saying, I'm looking at it right now. It looks very nice. I look forward to looking at it after the show with the music up and everything. It looks very nice.
Ass kisser. All right, Julia, Michigan.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm convinced that the Republicans want a Taliban-style government here.
They do.
What Trump did at getting all those people out of jail and putting the Taliban back in charge. And ever since, his kids in the Republican Party has been all of a sudden it's held the Taliban are good people. All of a sudden they're great.
Yeah.
Well,
I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that leap to the Taliban are great, but I did see a million, people in my neighborhood posting about how Obama was the one that let the Taliban 5 out of Gitmo, and now they're in charge of Afghanistan. But that was many, many years.
That's a load of crap.
No, it's not
That's a load of crap.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Well.
No, it's not. Obama did free 5 Taliban fighters from Gitmo in exchange for Bowie Bergdahl. But Donald Trump was president for 4 years after that. Now, those Taliban 5 fighters that were released from Gitmo to get back an American service member, they were in Doha, Qatar. These are the people that Donald Trump chose to negotiate with. The same Taliban 5 that he railed against are the same ones he just handed Afghanistan to.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there? It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Well, I think the same as I've been thinking for the last number of years. What are we doing there? These people hate us. As soon as we leave, it's all going to blow up anyway.
The White House had hoped to surprise the world with the Taliban at Camp David signing a peace deal.
Some Republicans criticizing the White House for the time and place of the meeting, especially just days before 9/11.
President Trump was at that moment crowing about how great he gets along with the Taliban. Taliban prisoners were released from Afghan custody yesterday. The Afghan government did not want to let them go because of what these prisoners were accused of, but the Trump administration insisted.
The Taliban welcomed the news in a statement today from Doha.
A meeting between Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Taliban negotiators in Qatar.
And they did a rather crucial thing that I think has been part of the failure here, which is they excluded the Afghan government from the negotiation.
The president appears to have gotten ahead of his negotiators and his national security team. With some warning, this may reward the Taliban and undermine the delicate negotiations taking place right now in Doha, Qatar.
You're not going to need an exit strategy. I don't need exit strategies.
I'll be meeting personally with Taliban leaders in the not too distant future. They say they will be killing terrorists. Now it's time for somebody else to do that work, and that'll be the Taliban.
President Trump ordering a drawdown of troops in Iraq and Afghanistan by January the 15th.
just 5 days before he's set to leave office. The major military move comes as President Trump and his administration refuse to cooperate and coordinate with the Biden administration transition team.
Former President Trump released a statement yesterday praising President Biden's decision to withdraw U.S. forces from Afghanistan and called it, quote, a wonderful and positive thing to do.
I started the process. All the troops are coming back home. They couldn't stop the process. 21 years is enough, don't we think? 21 years. They couldn't stop the process. They wanted to, but it was very tough to stop the process.
As soon as we leave, it's all going to blow up anyway.
Occupy Democrats Election Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
That's exactly what happened. That's exactly. I love that. It's like the whole history of Donald Trump and the Taliban in 2 minutes. It's really amazing because when you think about who he chose to negotiate with, and that he chose to negotiate with the same Taliban creatures that he trashed Barack Obama for releasing from Gitmo. He literally picked those 5. They weren't in Afghanistan. They were living in Doha. The Taliban 5, which is what the right-wing media called these guys. These guys actually surrendered. They surrendered at the beginning of the war. They spent 13 years in Gitmo. When Obama became president, they took Bowie Bergdahl. They took him captive, and he was the only U.S. captive that the Taliban had. And Obama wanted to free him. And so he released these 5 who surrendered at the beginning of the war and sent them to Doha, to Qatar. The United States asked Qatar to keep an eye on them. The United States wanted them tracked while they lived in, I say Qatar, but you could say Qatar, or you could say whatever. And the Qatari government did do that. When it was time for Donald Trump to cut and run, without an exit strategy, you have him there in his own freaking voice, in his own words saying, I don't need no stinking exit strategy. I don't need an exit strategy because it's all going to blow up. You know, like, screw all these Afghans that helped us. There are about 300,000 Afghans that helped us with everything from cultural guides to road guides to clearing roads of IEDs. Oh, and speaking of IEDs, so these 5 Taliban guys that Obama released to Qatar and got promises from the Qatari government to keep, lookout and always know where they were, they had a request of Donald Trump. They wanted their boss released from a Pakistani prison. Now, this guy, Baradar, he's called the Butcher Baradar. Baradar is a guy who literally invented IEDs against our soldiers, our Marines, in Afghanistan. And the CIA was able to track down Mullah Baradar. And the CIA then asked the Pakistani intelligence agencies to go and find him at this location and to imprison him. And the Pakistanis did so. And so Baradar was rotting away. He was doing, he was in the Pakistani prison rotting away for, I guess, 8 years before Donald Trump was told that the Taliban wanted him released from a Pakistani prison. And Donald Trump called the Pakistani Prime Minister Khan, and said, I want this guy released. And he said, why this guy? This guy's a butcher, man. This is a guy that invented the soccer stadium killings of women. This is a guy who invented, like, the use of IEDs. This is a guy who's killed American, troops over and over and over again. Why him? I want him. I want him. And they did. They released him, and that is who Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo chose to negotiate the surrender to the Taliban by America. And that is what happened. We literally surrendered 20 years of our work, 20 years of our service, 20 years of 300,000 Afghans who worked with us. He literally surrendered their hopes and dreams of the future to the most brutal butchers of the Taliban. And he did it 5 days before he was ready to leave office. He literally pulled all the troops out. He left Joe Biden a complete and utter mess. He left Joe Biden an exit date. He left Joe Biden 2,500 people on the ground to execute an evacuation of hundreds of thousands of people. And you know what? Joe Biden's pulling it off. Joe Biden's actually getting it done. Now, is it going to be pretty? No. Is it going to be without chaos? Is it going to be... This is what I told you to try to imagine yesterday. Try to imagine, because, you know, the right-wing lunatics in this country are so much like the Taliban. They are suicide bombers. They are martyrs for Donald Trump. They will die for him. We know that with the COVID pandemic, and we also know that with the January 6th insurrection, okay? We know that they're willing to put their lives on the line for this undemocratic way of living here in these United States. They're a small portion of our population, but they're there. Well, these people who are willing to die for Donald Trump are now saying that Donald Trump did the right thing by surrendering us and all of our work to the Taliban. They're literally saying that. And that we should never, ever, ever let Afghans into our country. We should never have them here, even though these are the best allies we've had since, you know, probably World War II. They're twisting and mangling stories to make Donald Trump into a hero here. And Donald Trump literally surrendered us to the Taliban and to some of the most brutal of the Taliban. Mike Pompeo sat in Doha with the Taliban 5 and sat there with their boss, the butcher Baradar, and handed Afghanistan to them without an exit strategy. And now they're complaining because it's noisy and messy at the airport. Listen, I got news for you. We have evacuated, last night we evacuated 5,700 individuals. This week, before those 5,700 were evacuated, we were able to get 7,000 out. So that's a total of 13,000 so far that we have gotten out. Now, last weekend, Joe Biden was at Camp David, and the Taliban were not in charge of Afghanistan. And in just 7 days, the president of Afghanistan fled the country, scaring the bejesus out of these people that they had, the whole country had gone belly up, and they made a mad dash for the airport.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
This is one of the largest, most difficult airlifts in history, and the only country in the world capable of projecting this much power on the far side of the world with this degree of precision is the United States of America. We've already evacuated more than 18,000 people since July and approximately 13,000 since our military airlift began on August the 14th. Thousands more have been evacuated on private charter flights facilitated by the U.S. government. These numbers include American citizens and permanent residents, as well as their families. It includes SIV applicants and their families, those Afghans who have worked alongside us, served alongside of us, gone into combat with us, and provided invaluable assistance to us, such as translators and interpreters.
So we are involved in one of the largest airlifts in the history of mankind right now in Afghanistan, and we've been very successful at it. We've seen 17 flights leave Afghanistan just in the last 24 hours. There was a brief pause this morning. Why? Because Qatar, who is taking a whole lot of these flights, well, they're taking all these flights. Qatar has been taking all these flights as a transitional point, and then flights are going to Virginia, flights are going to Wisconsin, flights are going all over the place. Flights are going to Europe, flights are going to Poland, flights are going to the Czech Republic. They're everywhere, okay? And Qatar is where, when you come out of Afghanistan, it's where the planes transit to, right? And Qatar said, wait, we're at capacity now. You have to pause. So we had to pause this morning. Oh, my God, you would think that Biden had dropped a nuclear bomb on Afghanistan. Oh, there's panic. Oh, he's not doing it right. Oh, this is not good. Oh, there was a sick baby in the crowd, and the baby was handed up by the baby's father, it looks like in the video, to the Marines that were standing on the barbed wired wall so that the baby could get medical attention because the baby was stuck against the wall with the barbed wire, and the parents got scared. So they handed the baby up. Our military took the baby, treated the baby. I think the baby was dehydrated because it's very, very hot right now there, and they're standing out in the middle of a freaking desert, okay? Treated the baby and gave the baby back to the parents. Oh, this is going to be the most iconic visual, and it's going to be this. I mean, honestly, people are insane in this country. There's something so wrong with even mainstream media who is looking for an angle, looking for something, to generate eyeballs, and are creating the impression that somehow we're not doing this right. What evacuation for the losing team, which we are because of Trump, he surrendered. What evacuation for the losing team has ever gone really, really well? The last evacuation when we were the losing team was in Vietnam, and that did not go really, really well. In fact, Lawrence O'Donnell last night, thank God he has an institutional memory that's good enough to recount for you how successful this evacuation has been and will be as compared to other evacuations.
As of tonight, and this could change because things could take a dramatic turns for the worse at any moment, but as of tonight, President Joe Biden is managing the most successful American military evacuation from a war that America lost.
Yes.
As of tonight, the Biden administration and the American military have managed to evacuate 7,000 people from Afghanistan after the capital city of Kabul came under the control of the people who won the war. In Vietnam in 1975, after Saigon, then the capital city of South Vietnam fell under the complete control of the North Vietnamese army. Republican President Gerald Ford was able to get absolutely no one out of Vietnam.
No one.
No one. In those final days before the last American helicopter left Saigon, leaving thousands of our allies behind, the Ford administration and the American military were able to evacuate a total of 7,000 people. The Biden-run evacuation is well on its way to evacuating many more people than the American military was able to evacuate from Vietnam in the final days. In Vietnam, the Americans were being driven out of the country at gunpoint. In Afghanistan, so far, the Taliban have not fired a shot at the American military.
I mean, what is wrong? Thank you, Lawrence. What is wrong with people in this country? I don't even understand it. Even the left wing is complaining. This isn't organized. It looks too chaotic. What's with the baby? And and that was last night. That was last night, the 7,000 evacuated number. Today, it's 13,000 evacuated. Today, we were able to get 17 flights out of there, and they're continuing. There was a pause this morning because Qatar said, we can't take any more air traffic. You have to slow down. Just slow it down. So we paused. And Joe Biden had to come to the podium and explain, it's fine. We got this. We're going to do this. Any American who wants to get out. This is something that lunatic, fringy, right-wing people or people who have never served any cause bigger than themselves will never understand. And that is this. Some Americans want to stay there and help. Some Americans don't want to leave. Most Afghans don't want to leave. They do not. You know why? Because our American military has created an environment over the last 20 years that has hope. that looks hopeful to Afghans. You have an entire generation of Afghan women who grew up without anybody beating them, without anybody telling them they couldn't go to school. You have a whole generation in the last 20 years of women who have been educated, who have become doctors, and the first female pilot for the Afghan military. She lives here now, but I mean, they literally lived in a place because our military created a space for hopefulness, for the future, for not just Afghan women, but for the country. Donald Trump sold it all away. He sold it all out just so he could leave a turd for Joe Biden. Just so he could leave a mess. Just so he could have chaos. Not just COVID chaos on the home front, but chaos over there too. Chaos in the economy. Chaos in every aspect. Whatever Trump touched died. You understand that? And he couldn't resist. So 5 days before January 20th, 5 days before Trump was due to leave office, it was a week after the insurrection, Donald Trump pulled almost every troop out. Everybody was saying, leave at least 5,000 there, leave at least 5,000. Oh no. He pulled all of it. He left 2,500 there and then called it a day and left complete and utter chaos. Okay? The Taliban, it was a clear signal to the government of Afghanistan, you lost.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
We're going to do everything that we can to provide safe evacuation for our Afghan allies, partners, and Afghans who might be targeted because of their association with the United States. But let me be clear. Any American who wants to come home, we will get you home. But make no mistake, this evacuation mission is dangerous. It involves risks to our armed forces, and it's being conducted under difficult circumstances. I cannot promise what the final outcome will be, or what it will be, that it will be without risk of loss. But as Commander-in-Chief, I can assure you that I will mobilize every resource necessary. And as an American, I offer my gratitude to the brave men and women of the U.S. Armed Forces who are carrying out this mission.
And people will just trash him. They will trash him. They'll trash the American military, whoever, whatever. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. All in service to a ideology. It's very Taliban. It's extremely dangerous. It's deadly. These people are willing to die. They are willing to martyr their children at this point, and they want to take you with it. They will be suicide bombers. They will be insurrectionists. They are just they're misinformed, disinformed, and full of lies, full of the most. And I'm telling you, countries that do not wish us well, they are polluting the social media airway, just polluting it with garbage, aggregating one to the other, to where a woman last night, swear to God, she keeps feeding me this bad information that she got off of one right-wing website about how the Americans who want to come home have to pay $2,000 to Joe Biden in order to get on an airplane, and they have to sign a waiver saying that if they don't have the $2,000, they will owe it. They will owe it, right? Now, it's not true, okay? You had the State Department saying yesterday, late in the afternoon, that it wasn't true. But it had already been aggregated from one lunatic fringe website to another, like the Daily Caller, some that you know, and they were all printing this that as if it were actually a term of agreement that people had, Americans had to agree to in order to get airlifted out of there. The State Department had to put out a statement yesterday saying that is not happening. But it's an amazing thing to watch these aggregators of bad information do their thing in real time, and I see it happening all the time. All the time. And people literally believe it. They literally believe it. They think Joe Biden is abandoning Americans. And then on the other side of it, you know, you've got these racist broadcasters who are saying, you know, anti-Muslim crap, right? We can't have any Muslims here, and these people don't mean us well, and, you know, blah, 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 and we have to get them out of here, and don't let them come to Wisconsin, and don't let them come to Virginia, and don't let them come to, I mean, it's the sickest, most twisted group of people.
Yesterday, to underscore that point, the Biden administration told us that American citizens would not be given priority in the evacuation from Kabul.
That's not true.
So our government's official position is that American lives are not more valuable than the lives of foreigners.
That's
but you already
not
knew
true.
that because you've seen our southern border.
Oh, my God.
The people who made the Afghan occupation possible would like to see a lot more of our southern border, much more unrestrained immigration to the U.S. Bring in the refugees, they're screaming tonight. That's the only lesson they're taking from this debacle. Quote, America must not stand idly by, Mitt Romney tweeted today. The president must urgently rush to defend, rescue, and give and expand asylum. There is no time to spare. There's lots of time to spare as Americans die of fentanyl ODs and millions of foreign nationals whose identities we can't confirm move here. But when it comes to bringing Afghans to our country, there's no time to spare. And Liz Cheney firmly agrees with that. So does her friend Bill Kristol and Nancy Pelosi and Victoria Nuland at the State Department and so many more just like them. These are the architects of the disaster we are watching unfold on television. They should be groveling for our forgiveness, but they're not. Why? Because contrition requires decency. There's no chance. So we're getting it. And if history is any guide, and it's always a guide, we will see many refugees from Afghanistan resettle in our country in coming months, probably in your neighborhood. And over the next decade, that number may swell to the millions. So first we invade, and then we're invaded. It is always the same.
Okay, this is the most anti-American position anyone could have. We're a nation of immigrants, number one. Number two, comparing our allies who translated for us, who risked their lives for us, who guided us through Afghanistan, who literally fought for their for our soldiers to live, right? That we shouldn't let them in because their constituency, Tucker Carlson's crowd, likes oxycodone and fentanyl. What? Conflating fentanyl and the southern border, which is a result of another illegal war waged by another Republican president named Ronald Reagan. The reason why Central America is so broken is because Ronald Reagan had an illegal war in Central America funded by selling weapons, tow missiles, to Iranian mullahs during a campaign against Jimmy Carter. And he told the Iranian mullahs, if I win the presidency, I will sell you tow missiles. Release the hostages when I tell you to. And that's what, I mean, it's so unbelievable. They never take responsibility for any of their warmongering. They never take responsibility for any of the death that they feed their people, whether it's don't wear a mask, don't get vaccinated, oxycodone, fentanyl patches. Here you go, Big Pharma. They're our friends, and, they're going to poison you, and you're going to like it. You're going to like it a lot. It's very sick. It's very twisted. It's not new. It's not new. Here's Stephen Miller and Laura Ingraham discussing, refugees.
It's not about humanitarian relief because it is far cheaper to resettle Afghan refugees in Pakistan and other neighboring countries.
Well, the UAE is helping with these airlifts, I understand, from my source tonight. They're doing big amounts of help to bring people out of Afghanistan. The UAE can take some of these folks as well. They should be more culturally at home in the Middle East. And I think it makes a lot of sense.
Don't repeat the mistakes of Europe.
Yeah, well, and Europe doesn't
want them. Europe is taking them. France is taking them. England is taking them. Poland is taking them. I mean, this is such bullcrap. And people just repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it to each other and repeat it on social media and repeat it on Twitter and repeat it here and repeat it there, to the point where you could have 10 really bad sources saying the same thing. And that is how they do it. They inundate people with crap, all branded under different websites.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
There's no way in which you'd be able to leave Afghanistan without there being some of what you're seeing now. But what we've done so far is we've been able to get a large number of Americans out, all our personnel at the embassy out, and so on. And thank God, so far, knock on wood, we're in a different position.
There is no way that the losing party in a war, especially a 20-year war, doesn't have chaos when they try to evacuate their citizens, their allies in that war out of the country. It has not happened before. It hasn't. And Joe Biden is making it happen. You know, I mean, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. You know, there were 204 journalists from the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal, all newspapers I recommend. And all 204 of those journalists are out of Afghanistan. They were all airlifted out of Afghanistan. So it's not just, you know, embassy personnel, and it's not just, you know, Americans who work for non-governmental organizations or for, you know, the Peace Corps or AmeriCorps or whatever. No, it's also the journalists. It's also our allies. It's also women who are targeted now by the Taliban for being, you know, women that fought against the Taliban. And this is all happening because we have the most awesome, amazing military men who will actually they went back there. They deployed back there. Joe Biden had to deploy 6,000 back into Afghanistan to help us get everyone that wants to come out. They don't even know how to win, the Republicans. They don't. They surrendered us in Vietnam. They surrendered us here. And remember Donald Trump, he abandoned the Kurds. Do you remember how upset I was about that? Because I knew some Kurdish people over in Turkey. I knew them. And they were the most amazing fighters. They were the most amazing women. They were the most amazing group of people who had literally sacrificed their lives to fight ISIS. And what does Donald Trump do? He abandoned them. He opened up their prisons where they held ISIS prisoners and allowed those prisoners to escape. He did the same thing in Afghanistan. You know, he released 5,000 Taliban prisoners before he surrendered us. I don't know what people, you know, why people can't wrap their brains around the fact that we had a president of the United States who was a traitor to the United States, who betrayed the United States every single chance he got. From our allies in Ukraine, that was the first impeachment, to our allies in Syria, who were the Kurdish fighters who were fighting ISIS, to the Afghan people who allied with us against the Taliban. And he never fails to do what every dictator does. He opens up the prisons. He lets all of the bad people out just as he's about to exit stage left. And then on top of it, something we'd never seen before, ever, he tells his Taliban, his American Taliban, to go and threaten the lives of our Congress members, to actually go to their place of work and beat the police officers who are protecting them so that they could evacuate. And Americans, there's still 30% of America that is blind to all of this behavior, all of this treasonous, traitorous, insurrectionist behavior. They're just blind to it. It's a crying shame. Dan in Pennsylvania. May I help you?
Hello.
Karen in Illinois.
Yes. 30% of America. That is wrong.
Rick in California.
Hey, Randy, I wanted to know, why did they repeal the FAIR doctrine in the 80s? Because if the FCC would really kind of re-engage that sort of approach, maybe we can do something about Newsmax, OAN, Fox, because they're essentially enemies of the state, and they're killing people.
Again, I'm going to have to tell you this. Again, please jot it down, everybody, and make a note. The Federal Communications Commission only has purview over the public airwaves, not even cable. Definitely not even cable. The Fairness Doctrine, which was repealed by Ronald Reagan in the 80s, in 1987, was a doctrine that, to see what it looks like, you know how after the State of the Union, the opposing party gets 5 minutes to rebut? That's what the Fairness Doctrine provided for. It was never equal time or anything that you think it is. It was never that.
That's incredible. I was not aware of that, but there's something that the federal government should be able to do to control the massive flow of misinformation that's leading to deaths of thousands of people.
Well, I have two solutions to that problem, and they've been the same forever. They've been the same for 20 years. The first solution is very basic, very simple. If you are using your office as a congressman, a state legislator of any sort, a president, a senator, if you are using your office to communicate to your constituents or anybody at all, you are under oath. That would stop a whole lot of the lying that goes on. That's number one. Okay? Number two, if you care to brand yourself as news, you have to meet journalistic standards as set out by the greatest journalism schools that we have in the United States of America, whether it's the Columbia School of Journalism or the Wharton School of Journalism, whatever, and have a commission that actually says these are the steps you must take to fact check before you can brand yourself as a news outlet. That would stop Fox News. That would stop a whole lot of the bullcrap that passes under the banner of news in this here country that is just a stupid right-wing website.
Okay, thank you very much.
So there are solutions to our difficult problems. It's just nobody seems to be interested in solving them. David in Missouri.
Hey, Randy, how are you?
Good, you?
I want to thank you for speaking the truth, and I want you to find a quiet place this weekend. Please don't burn out. I mean, this is all this nonsense. All the chaos is making us all crazy. But thank you for the truth.
You're welcome. Thank you. Rob in Mesa, Arizona.
Hey, just real quick on what you said about the journalism. I agree. You should have a private company, whether like J.D. Edward puts out awards, you could have a private company, basically certify you. And if somebody uses it illegally, they can go after them for fines and that. But the other thing I wanted to say real quick about the war, pulling out of Afghanistan, all we're going to remember is Biden ended it, period. That's all that's going to happen out of this. I only wish that we only trained women to hold firearms in that country before we pulled out. Are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. And one other thing about the virus, we're in a phase that I call it's uniquely American. I think it's called the Darwin phase of the virus because, we got a solution and people just don't want to take it.
Right.
So I just don't understand it.
There are solutions for almost every problem. There are some that are a little more intractable than others, some more difficult, some require more participation, some require a whole of government approach, as they say. But taking a vaccine is not one of them, okay? And
can I give you...
And wearing a mask is not one of them. These are things you can do yourself.
And one more solution, and this is a little off topic for the day, but is with the medical. And I know one way we could probably fix the outrageous charges that's going on with the healthcare industry is just make them all all the the Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and all those people, make them all nonprofit again. Because here's what happens when you form a corporation. When you need assets, you sell a piece of paper because you want to build a plant that costs a lot of money. So when you sell stock, you're selling paper to raise capital to build something. Well, the healthcare industry did exactly the opposite. They had a ton of cash, and they go, well, how do we suck this cash out? Oh, I know. Let's trade on the stock exchange, and then we can suck it out in dividend. So I think go back to where it all started. Blue Cross and Blue Shield started off as nonprofit, and it worked just fine because they had more cash than they knew what to do with, and so they went, basically on the stock market so they could start sucking out the profits.
Well,
and that's a problem.
That's sort of the Medicare for all theory. So
yeah, no, I'm all for that, but I mean, this
too.
would do it without really changing anything, but making all the for-profit people.
Well, you're saying to all these private companies, you have to divest yourself and go, public, basically, which would be Medicare for all. Yes, we definitely have problems, but most of them can be solved. Remember that.